Thank you for joining us, Rachel.
Thank you. So as I said, I'm Rachel Black. I'm the Improvement East Programme Manager. So Improvement East is the Eastern Region Improvement and Innovation Alliance, which is funded by contributions from the 11 LAs in the region and also the DFE. We're a small team that supports the improvement in children's services across the Eastern region. We do this through facilitating opportunities for LAs to come together for collaboration and sharing best practice. And we also deliver a range of initiatives, projects and work streams, which are led and agreed by the regional DCS priorities. And one of the main priorities since 2024 has been the anti-racist practice work and the development and implementation of the pledge that Antonia is going to talk to you about now.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. So on the screen, you can see the Eastern Region Anti-Racist Pledge. Really, really excited to announce that it has been signed off and endorsed by 11 directors of children's services across the East of England. And you can find that on the Improvement East website. It's a really momentous time for the region because something like this has never been done before. Anti-racist practice has not been on the agenda at that scale. And we do have a collective effort to ensure that anti-racism is kept at the very highest level. This pledge was co-produced by every single local authority with representatives. Thank you. So where did this work start? So this work started in May 2024. Well, actually it started in Essex in 2022, where we made anti-racist practice as a local authority a strategic priority. I then attended the Senior Leadership Network in May 2024, which is made up of ADs and directors across the Eastern region, and shared Essex's work. From there, we had a director, Nikki O'Shaughnessy, who raised the idea around a regional pledge, a regional conference, and that was backed and endorsed by the rest of her colleagues. In June 2024, it was agreed that it would be a priority, and a task and finish group was formed to ensure that we had that collaboration across the 11 local authorities. And it was formally adopted January the next year and officially launched at a leadership conference in May 2025. And we realized that we couldn't really stop with a conference. We didn't want to be tokenistic. We didn't want to have a one-off event where we had this pledge without any backing or any further work. So a regional forum was then created, which is chaired by myself and my colleague, Teresa Hills from Luton. And this forum is a space where we talk about anti-racism on a bi-monthly basis with representatives across the Eastern region to really have oversight and scrutiny over the work on a regional level. Since then, we have been really trying to refine our data, really understand who our children and families are, what the workforce composition is made of, and really try to understand from a diagnostic point of view, where are we at as a region? We've also launched learning spaces to ensure that we are contributing to practice development, global majority reflective spaces, which is spaces for ethnically diverse colleagues to come and talk about their shared challenges, mentorship and so forth. And we've also launched it separately to practitioners earlier this year. And we will talk in a few slides about the collaboration with Social Work England around the Black Males pilot. Thank you. So this work is really underpinned by 4 key pillars. Accountability is really key. We don't want this to be a tokenistic gesture. We want to ensure that accountability is held by all local authorities at the very highest level. So we have developed a regional diagnostic benchmark, which is self-reported information from all local authorities to really understand where local authorities are at. And we really want to have that shared learning approach. We don't want to esteem one local authority over another, but actually to take a learning approach. Again, implementation is really key. This regional forum is ongoing, and we have also developed a data dashboard to ensure that we understand our regional scope. Again, the webinars are ongoing, and we really ensure that anti-racist practice is a standard agenda item on network meetings. Thank you. So I'll hand over to my colleague Tapiwa Julius to talk about the Black Male pilot alongside Amina. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So just a little bit about the Black Male social work pilot. This is something that's really close to my heart. And that comes from being a mother to a Black boy. And so thinking about actually those opportunities that we have within social care for Black males to be seen, heard, and what it looks like for them on a day-to-day basis. What we also know is that within the Eastern region, majority of the local authorities engaged within the social care workforce race equality standards. And I will call it the social care res going forward. And within the social care res, which is led by Skills for Care, there are particular indicators that local authorities report on. And one of those indicators is around the fitness to practice referrals. And what we know from those indicators of that fitness to practice referrals, that there's an overrepresentation of Black males over 40. And so this was something that came up in our action plans to explore how we can, within our my previous local authority in Cambridgeshire, how we can address that as an action plan for the social carers. And this created an opportunity for us to have a collaboration with Social Work England, who also report on this data because they are they manage us as social workers, and we are registered with Social Work England, and so they hold this data. And this is where the idea of collaboration came up from. And it was an opportunity for us really in the social care sector to raise some important questions around fairness, organizational culture, and moral responsibility of leadership to ensure that systems of accountability are also systems of justice. The idea of the project was to understand the experiences of Black male practitioners and not to do it to them, but it being a co-produced and a social justice inquiry. So I guess you're all wondering, why is there not a Black male talking about this? So we started the conversation as women, and we started it from a place of allyship and a place of thinking about intersectionality. And we put the question towards our Black colleagues, Black male colleagues, and said, this is what we think might be happening, and we would like to hear your views. And we heard what they wanted to say, and they wanted to do this project. And they have led this project. We have had 3 sessions within the Eastern region. The last session was last week. And we've had really good attendance of these sessions. And we hear from the men that this was the first time in their careers that they've had this space created for them, and they would like to continue to have that space. We will do an evaluation. My colleagues in the Eastern region will continue the work, and we'll do the evaluation with Social Work England. And the aspiration is that actually this will then continue this conversation within a national picture as well, so that other regions can also become part of this conversation, and we can ensure that we address those issues around racial inequities for Black males within social work. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about our key successes. We've just heard about the initiative with Social Work England and working together on the Black Male Social Workers Pilot, which I'm very proud to be supporting. This is a regional priority for the Eastern region, and we've got commitment up to the pledge from all 11, and very much all 11 local authorities in the region. Every local authority is engaged in the pledge and implementation, and again, everyone's on their own journey, but everyone is very much on the journey together. The establishment of the regional global majority reflective space that we mentioned earlier, that happens quarterly. Again, feedback, learning, and sharing, and it is a welcome space that it's just growing in people, which is fantastic to see. We've created shared regional learning spaces for colleagues, which happen at least bi-monthly. Again, topics picked by the region for the region, and again, very well attended. And as we mentioned, we're creating an anti-racist practice dashboard for workforce, children and families. And on our next slide, I just wanted to show just some where people have pledged and committed and been to the events and shared their commitment, and that's from our leadership and our practitioners events recently held, and also from the wall of pledges, what people said they were going to commit taking forward, which again will support along the way. I'll hand it back to Rachel.
Thanks, Gemma. And I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that we face with this work. So I think one of the biggest challenges that LAs are at different places in their anti-racist practice journey, and therefore have different resources allocated and priorities, but trying to navigate that as a region, and that extra regional support is helping that. We have varying demographics across the region. We're a large geographical region with varying demographics. Most LAs in the region have a white majority population, but then we have other LAs such as Luton where it's a very different demographic. Communicating the message across the region can also be a challenge. We work at quite a high level with quite a small team in the region, so we really rely on those representatives from each LAs to pass the message down. And you know, it's important that we keep on top of that communication and try and spread it in as many ways as we can so that it gets to everybody. And also one of the biggest challenges of everything in children's services at the moment is a changing landscape of LAs, and obviously all the reforms and other work that's going on in children's services. We need to make sure that we keep the momentum with this work and it just doesn't become an extra burden. So in terms of that, so our focus, so we use the anti-racist practice diagnostic that all 11 LAs completed, and we completed an analysis of this. So there's a regional report that goes with it, and then also an individual report that goes back to the LAs to benchmark their position in terms of the pledge and gives them a starting point for their local action plans. So the regional focuses are around accountability, developing a framework that defines minimum standards and sets out what good looks like in relation to the pledge, establishing a biannual self-evaluation and peer challenge process to assess progress against the pledge, and so we can identify how that's been implemented in local areas, and to produce an annual report which summarises the region activity impact and also informs our future work. So in terms of implementation, we've talked about this before, but really getting that data set for the children and families we serve, but also for the workforce, so we can collect and report on this annually. And then to identify opportunities for collaboration and development under the pledge. So we're looking at things such as a shared induction standard, consistent exit interviews and practice tools. And also we're going to take a regional anti-racist practice survey, which will be specifically for global majority staff to understand their experiences, and that will help inform future work.
Thank you, Rachel. And again, practice is the heart of what we do. This is about social work. This is about justice. This is about ensuring that our children and families have the very best outcomes. So we want to really equip our social workers and our practitioners and partners to access anti-racist resources through webinars and to share, identify and promote good examples of what actually works, what can be strengthened, and also to accept challenge where we're not doing so well. Again, the global majority reflective spaces, we want to ensure that it remains racially trauma informed, and it is led by a Black woman. It is therapeutic as well. And we also want to ensure that we're not leaving people with trauma, but they feel empowered to have their stories heard and told. Again, the regional forums across the Eastern region, we want to really ensure that anti-racism feeds into absolutely every element. For example, we are going to the SEND forum next week to ensure that we are looking at the intersections between SEND and race, and ensuring that anti-racism again feeds into absolutely everything that we do. Thank you. Before I hand over to Amina, these are our contact details. If there's any ideas or any further information you wanted, please do contact us, as we're always open to hear and to listen to feedback. Thank you. Over to you, Amina.
Thanks, Antonia. And it's great to be here and join everybody. I'm always inspired by the work that's taking place in the East, and my section's going to focus a little bit more on the work that we've been doing on a national level, which some of that builds on the work that we've been doing alongside the East, but some of it is a little broader. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So I think it's helpful just to start a little by talking about our organisational commitment to EDI and co-production. You'll have seen over the years that there's been a little bit of a journey if you've been following us. But one of the things that we've committed to is building our EDI and co-production objectives fully into our business plan for this year. Previously, they've been built into the organisational strategy. And we feel that it's really important that they are very much live within everything that they do. They have been foundational principles for us since our inception. But I think it feels really important for us to ensure that they are very visible in all our work. And that is really useful when we are able to showcase them within our business plan quite clearly. I think that really then feeds into our longer term commitment to inclusion and fairness. And as part of that, we really want to ensure that we are utilising lived and learned experience. So some of the work that we've done alongside colleagues in the East very much speaks to using that lived experience, but we've also got a national advisory forum, which is made up of people with lived experience, social workers, educators, and students. And we've recently increased the size of our lived experience and student cohort, and we are looking to recruit again for later this year for social workers and educators. So do keep an eye out for that. And we're really keen to explore how we enhance our approach to ensure that we're able to increase impact, and we want to continue to be able to do that alongside this sector. And some of that is also done through our regional engagement team, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the work and how we've focused on that next. So the next few slides are going to focus a little more on fitness to practice and some of the work that we've done within that area. And one of the ways that we've done that is by establishing a single point of contact network. I'm going to call them SPOC from now on. I know we love an acronym within social work. We've had a few already. So the SPOCs are established across local authorities and social work employers. And what we want to do is to be able to have a central link between employers and the regulator. And this really helps to support appropriate handling of fitness to practice cases. And we recognise that the fitness to practice process can be really stressful for everybody involved. So we really want to be able to think about how we can make that as supportive as possible, how we can really think about how we work well with people, and to really ensure that people feel like they are able to be as supported as possible within that process. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is also sharing some insights on referral themes and looking at whether we can actually explore local resolution. So really looking at where it's appropriate issues are dealt with at a local level. And we only really want to receive referrals as the regulator when necessary. Referrals should be proportionate. And we want to ensure that we're also able to support consistency, confidence and public protection across the board. So there's regular meetings for the SPOC network to really support each other and to really think about how we can utilise that learning. And one of the ways that we've done that is by producing some fair referral principles. And we've co-produced these with the SPOC network, and these provide guidance for employers on when to raise fitness to practice concerns. They're really designed to reduce disproportionality in referrals. It encourages people to think through particular scenarios, to think about working with colleagues within the organisation. And it also responds to the diversity data that shows overrepresentation of some groups that Tapira spoke to a little earlier. And what we really hope that this will do is to ensure consistent decision making, to support equitable standards and really think about fair application across the workforce. And it's been really helpful to be able to work and get insights from colleagues within the SPOC network. And we've also worked with colleagues from Skills for Care and utilise some of their insights from the social care res data as well. And what we really hope is that these fair referral principles will be something that people utilise, but also share positive practices that they have, and that they can share those with our regional engagement leads, and we can continue to build on these principles so that we can continue to support positive practice across the board. Move on to the next slide, please. And then just to talk a little bit about our broader journey before we move over to the Q&A. So some of these areas of work that we've been talking about today have very much built on some of the analysis that we did a couple of years ago, and we published a summary report around some of this, and we're now applying enhanced analytical methods and really exploring some of the wider contributing factors behind overrepresentation. And we want to be able to really move beyond the surface level information and to develop a deeper insight. And we hope to share further findings next quarter. But what we're also recognizing, and I'm sure this will be familiar to a lot of people, is that the more we look at the data, the more questions you find rather than just answers. So I think there's something about how we explore more of those questions, but also ensure that we're not continuing to just ask more questions and not work with some of the information that we find as well, which is why I've focused more on some of the work that we've been doing on the findings that we do have. And alongside that, we've also prioritised some training for our fitness to practice colleagues, and we are developing another specific training programme that will support colleagues within the organisation to support them with looking at fair decision making and exploring anti-racism specifically, but also more broadly looking at intersectionality and some of the ways that we can ensure that people feel that their concerns are being addressed in a way that is most equitable. And finally, we've also completed a thematic case review, examining decision making in cases where EDI factors were identified, and we've really looked at how we can use this information to ensure that our decision-making guidance for staff is regularly updated. And so we really want to look at this as a two-pronged approach, so looking at how we work with the sector to think about the referrals that we receive, but also look at how we explore our own processes in ensuring that all of our decisions are fair and equitable. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Amina, and thank you, everyone. Now we have almost half an hour left, 30 minutes left for questions. Therefore, I'm going to encourage more participants. So colleagues, please do ask more questions. We do have some of them already, and I'm going to keep everyone on the screen if that is okay. Just make sure that you might decide who is going to respond first. I'm going, first of all, let's stop sharing the screen just to be more visible to the participant. For one of the questions came through, I think is the first one. How can you join the Black male social workers pilot? Let's see who would like to come first. Should I come to you, Antonia, and then maybe Amina, if you want to add anything?
Yes, so the Black male pilot has concluded now. So they had the final session last week. However, they are thinking about what they need from now, so to ensure that it's not a one-off project and pilot. So I'll say watch this space. I don't know if anything you wanted to add to Piwa, but yes, watch this space. But depending on the findings from what they shared, that will determine what we do next. But it has concluded.
You, Antonia, and you're right, isn't it? We are going to look at how we evaluate together the findings and what the next steps will be. And I'm sorry, I'm not on the screen, but I think people can hear me. I'm also very proud to say that I'm working and covering the Eastern region. That very much I can be part of that pilot project, in fact, going forward. Another question I have, what would you say are the biggest challenges of the work you are doing? And that I think is covering not just the pilot we have mentioned jointly, but the work you are doing in the Eastern region. And I'm going to open the floor to all of you. You might have very different perspectives. Thank you.
Hi, so I guess from my perspective, when we think about anti-racist work, as a person with lived experience, Antonio talked earlier on about the trauma and the need to actually do this work with sensitivity. So I would say that I think sometimes it can be really difficult because it can be triggering. And it's also understanding that it is a journey. There is no quick fix. And it takes all of us It takes allies, accomplices, and people with lived experience to be able to navigate and professionally challenge and uphold social justice within our sector.
Another question, has this been discussed? I presume all the pilots, particularly the joint pilot with social working, has been discussed with the with the Children Services Director, ADCS. And I was trying to avoid to use an acronym, exactly like Amina pointed out. Therefore, have this been discussed with directors? But I'm very much aware that all your leaders, all the region leads have clearly signed and subscribed and implementing the pledge. Therefore, can this be replicated nationally? I think that's the question. Is there a desire to replicate that nationally? I wonder, Amina, if you want to come in here, because we have had some conversation, isn't it, with our director. People are reaching out to us. Definitely that's the case. Amina?
I think there's certainly interest in looking at how we can apply some of the learning from the East across the country. And I think there are many ways in which we can explore that a little further. I think the Principal Social Worker Network is definitely a really positive place in which we can explore that. I think there's been quite a lot of appetite with the PSWs, principal social workers, to be able to look at different ways that we can collaborate across the country. I think there's lots of great work in different parts of the country, but one of the things that we've really noticed is that perhaps there isn't always the join up that we would like. And I think there's a lot of momentum that's been built up in the East that I think could really help propel some of that energy and enthusiasm further forward. So I'm really keen to support that.
Thank you. Pia?
So wearing my national co-chair for the Principal Social Work Network, I had the opportunity in July last year to attend the annual Association of Directors conferences. And the theme that I was speaking on was in relation to EDI, diversity and inclusion, and particularly the anti-racist work that principal social workers across the country in children's services have been undertaking. And I did highlight specifically the work that is being done within the Eastern region, as some of which we've talked about today. So that was shared to all the directors so that they can have an understanding of what that looks like. I have also shared this work within the Skills for Care, Social Care, Workforce Race Equality Standards, Communities of Practice. So if your local authorities are signed up to undertake the social carers in either adults or children's services, I did share the work that's being done in the Eastern region as well, so that colleagues could have an understanding. So within the principal social work hat, as Amina said, we have tried to highlight this work that's being done so that we can either learn from other local authorities and or support regions and local authorities to see how we can work together in that way.
Thank you, Pia. Rachel, please come in.
Yeah, and just to raise, we've also shared it so nationally the RIA managers meet across the 9 regions. So the work in the East has also been shared across there, which generates quite a lot of interest as well.
Absolutely, Rachel. I think we have heard and we have seen and questions coming through to us around national interest, including from adult social workers colleagues, not just Eastern region. And I'm going to go back to the Q&A area. We also have a lovely feedback. Black male social workers, excellent approach. Can you provide more information about what is the breakdown in terms of service, senior managers, advanced practitioners, and how they are supported to be involved and to ensure continuity and sustainability of this approach? Any reflections here from all of you, I think?
Is that in regards to the Black Males pilot or the Eastern region anti-racist?
I would probably am assuming. I mean, let's go with the Eastern region pledge, and we can tune in if you want on the Black male social workers pilot.
Yeah, so we began with leaders in order to ensure that those who hold the most power have the most responsibility to do so. We did that last year, and just this year we launched the pledge with practitioners in January, which helped them to come close to the agenda, to feel that ownership, and also to give them power as well, to share that power. So in regards to that question, we're really ensuring that at every layer of the system and the network, people are involved in this work. People have a chance to contribute their ideas to the work as well. So I would say that the practitioners conference in January sort of met that need to ensure that it was distributed across the system. And it will be ongoing. Our communication won't stop or end with a conference, but will be sustained through continuous communication.
Fantastic. Any other reflection?
I would add that if you were speaking about having a breakdown of demographics or in terms of workforce by role, your local authority should be able to do that for you as part of the workforce reporting that they do, and you would be able to have that. If your local authority is also engaged within the social care workforce race equality standards, that again is data that is provided as one of the indicators, and so that would be readily available within your local authority as well. Thank you,
Tapia. Now we have a question. Did any of the voluntary organizations in the Eastern region also sign up to the pledge, anti-racist pledge? This is a question for the voluntary sector, charity sector in our region. From what I'm aware, probably I'm not aware of that, but anyway, Antonia and Tapia and all of you might be in a strong position to respond.
So at the moment, it's just the 11 local authorities in the region that have signed up for the pledge, but that is a bit of work on our forward plan of trying to then share the pledge with partners as well. So that's probably a 2027 job at the moment, but at the moment, it's just the 11 local authorities.
Great, thank you. And I was thinking, Rachel, a few seconds ago, I was thinking maybe it might be helpful to share who are those local authorities, because we talk about Eastern region, but this is a national session. Absolutely. Would you like to share which one they are?
I can now. You're going to test my test me. So it's Bedford, Central Bedfordshire, Luton, Cambridgeshire, Peterborough, Essex, Hertfordshire, Norfolk, Suffolk, Southend and Thurrock.
Right, thank you. Yeah. I was not going to test you there, Rachel, because I need to know that. Tapia, please come in.
Going back to the bit around the voluntary agencies, I think it's also important to note that the pledge in some local authorities has also been shared with the Safeguarding Board. So within the Safeguarding Board, you have our partners, our statutory partners, as well as the voluntary sector in there. So they may have some information on it, but are not yet as engaged. And I think if you recall, Antonio talked about the roadmap that we are on, and talked about how actually now it's moving into education, and Rachel has talked about actually moving on going forward. But you will find that most local authorities, because of the Families First agenda that is available within, which is a priority in most local authorities, it will also be part of that. And you will also see that as part of the new post-qualifying standards within children's services, there's specific reference in relation to anti-discriminatory practice, anti-racist practice. So again, there's more emphasis on driving the agenda on anti-racist practice.
Tapia, thank you for that. And in fact, one of the questions is very much probably, I don't know, Amina, if you want to come in here as well, Tapia, again. How can Social Work England, this is and BASWA, British Association of Social Work, help us? This is coming from Essex colleagues, to take the anti-racist pledge across the whole England, to influence all local authorities and bring them to this essential anti-racist practice journey with us. That is a really great question. And in fact, Tapia, you touch on the new standards coming through for the children, family, social worker colleagues. Amina, do you want to add here anything? Thank you.
I think probably just building on what I said earlier around how we utilise some of the existing networks. I think I'm really aware of all of the great work that's occurring in lots of different regions at the moment. And I think one of the best ways to be able to utilise that is through the principal social worker network. I think just because there's a clear contact in each of those areas. We did have a joint session with BASWA yesterday, and there was a real commitment to looking at how we champion the profession together and looking at different areas that we can really focus on. And one of those areas, I believe, will be EDI. And I think that's something that we can really support collectively. I think there's already areas in which different partners come together. So a few of us are involved in the anti-racism steering group, which brings together BASWA and Social Work England and principal social workers across the country already. So it's really thinking about how we utilise those existing spaces and really build on that momentum. I think we can really look at how we can coordinate different pieces of work across the country. I think the phrase about work smarter, not harder is coming to mind. And I think there's something about us constantly saying that there's often a lack of resources or sometimes capacity, etc. And I think sometimes there's something about lots of separate bits of work happening, and perhaps if we can bring that together, which is some of the pieces of work that a few of us are already trying to do, I think that's the way that we can really capitalise on some of that momentum.
Thank you. Anybody else, if you want to add any other reflections around this? We do have a question about how can you join the Black Male Social Worker Pilot. Therefore, definitely there is appetite there. We already mentioned that we are going to meet, in fact, on Tuesday, isn't it, next week, if I remember correctly. We're going to look at what we have heard, what we have learned, and the insights coming from the focus groups which took place February and March. I already mentioned 3 big sessions. We have another question. Do you have any advice on how an individual like social worker who maybe is not based in the Eastern region potentially can be encouraged to, or maybe supported, but also encourage their own leaders to create something similar, or to have those spaces where they can have similar experience and support to the one, Antonia, all of you are talking about? The reflective spaces, the safe spaces to talk about. Therefore, how can our colleagues across England and maybe beyond England as well, if they are not based in the Eastern region and they're not based in children and family social work, let's be open about this, because this initiative is around children and family social workers in our region. What they can do.
I think from the ethics perspective, it started with a conversation. It started with a sense of conviction that people weren't willing to accept the status quo anymore. And it started with a conversation, a safe space amongst South Asian, Black colleagues, dual heritage colleagues, and senior leaders who came together to actually talk about how they felt, and that triggered a business case to be put together. So I think the power of just coming together, bringing people who are like-minded together, people who want to see a different world, can be the starting point. But I understand that those with lived experiences are sometimes disempowered because of systemic racism, because of white supremacy. So I'll say, even if it's just 2 people just having a conversation initially, and maybe brainstorming around, you know, ideas, or speaking to us. We're very happy to speak to anybody around ideas as well, about how we started in Essex. So I think the conversation can't be underestimated.
Thank you. Tabia?
I would say, please speak to your principal social worker and let them know, and they can have conversations with you to understand what is happening, because our roles as principal social workers are about supporting everybody, our colleagues within our organizations, as well as practice improvement. And it is a national priority for principal social workers around workforce and around anti-racist practice.
Great, thank you. We also have another question which just came through. Would you support the Black male social worker being part of forums like the social work community? I do not know particularly that group or network. I don't know if anybody might be aware of it, the social work community, but definitely I think you have already responded to Pia what the first step should be, and Antonia, around talk to your principal social worker. If you don't have a principal social worker, because we might have colleagues based in NHS kind of settings, you'll have definitely a lead social worker. Sometimes they're called also principal social worker, they're more likely to be a lead social worker. Or if you are based in community, charity, voluntary sector, we do hope that you all have access to support from your line managers. But I'm very much aware the social work sector looks so diverse, isn't it? Social workers are based in so many settings. If anything, I'm trying not to promote the rest of the social work week events, but I'm very mindful, if anything, on Monday afternoon we heard about forensic social work, pockets of social work that are less known about it or less visible to the public, let alone also to social workers themselves sometimes. And we have tomorrow afternoon another Eastern Region colleague, in fact, talking about palliative care and how we can support the poor. I'm very mindful the social workers that are based in so many settings and is so diverse as a profession. Therefore, that also means sometimes they might be the only social worker in the team, at least isn't. I mean, now we have learned that as a regulator, that can be the only voice, only professional registered social worker in that team, and can be a very lonely space. Amina, please come in.
Absolutely, and I suppose the other thing that we can support with is utilizing our regional engagement leads like you, Anna. So I think there's also an opportunity for people to think about how you can connect with other people, perhaps more broadly in the region, if you do feel like you haven't got as many contacts within your own work setting. So I think that's also something that we're really trying to build as an organisation, looking at how we can bring together different social workers. We often have lots of events and we do consultations and opportunities for people to engage with us, but also think about how we can support connections within a local area as well.
Thank you. And very kindly, the colleague who also posed the question, explain to me what it is. The social community is an online community for social workers, whether you are a student on the cusp of qualifying or an experienced practitioner with many years in the sector. Thank you so much for that. Absolutely, really helpful. I learned something, definitely. I guess the option I offer here, our colleagues in the Eastern region has already posted earlier on one of the slides. We had the information about how you can contact them. Do reach out directly. Feel free, Rachel or Gemma, to share what is the email address. I can't remember from top of my head, but people can contact you outside this meeting, can reach out to you, and definitely Antonia and the rest of the Eastern colleagues. Tapio, we were going to miss you. Tapio changed the role just this week. Therefore, move from our lovely Eastern region to another beautiful area. We are definitely going to miss you so much. But thank you, Gemma. You posted in the chat, or I believe, the email address. Okay, we still have a question from one of the organizations, I think, present at this meeting. Did you have any directors that showed a bit of hesitation around engaging with the pledge? How did you encourage them, and how the data that you've been gathering stated the need for the pledge to be put in place?
So in terms of the directors, we didn't have any challenge at all. They were all very much for it, and the biggest thing that they wanted was co-production from all the 11 local authorities, and they wanted that to be done with staff as well as leaders, so that meant that we had to take a bit of time in developing the pledge, but I think that's absolutely the right approach. But they were all very much engaged with it and ready to sign it once it had been co-produced and signed off by colleagues across the region.
Thank you for that, Rachel. I can say that I was part of that conference. It was really fantastic and such a vibrant group of people wanted, like Antonia said, to change the status quo of what's happening in the region. Right, we have 10 minutes left. If we do not have any other questions coming through, I'm going to ask you all if you want to add any final reflections, and we don't need necessarily to stay until 2:30, but any other comments, any final kind of reflection about the journey Eastern region has had, or anything, I mean, I want to add from our perspective. Antonia?
Yeah, I just wanted to encourage everybody on the call that things are possible. You know, who would have ever thought that a whole region could be committed to anti-racist work? But it starts with an idea. It starts with doing something differently, bravely, courageously. So I think don't underestimate the power of sending an email, of reaching out to someone, and what sort of momentum you can make where you are. This work is very, very critical and vital in light of what's going on politically, internationally. And, you know, we have a duty as humans just to try and make the world a bit better. So, yeah, just don't underestimate the importance of what you can contribute.
Absolutely, Antonia, and that is very much into the World Social Work Day team, which all celebrated. We hope at least everybody in this meeting celebrated yesterday. Tapiwa, please come in.
And that's where I was going to think about the theme that we had yesterday, which is Harambe. And it's that bit about pulling together and working together, having hope. And that's really important because I said earlier, it's not a quick fix. And being collaborative, you will see that, you know, we all work in different local authorities on this screen, and organizations, but we've had to put in the time together. And some of our colleagues who are not here with us today in the Eastern region, who've been doing some amazing work, and it takes a team effort to be able to do that. And as usual, it has to be an African proverb, isn't it? That if you want to go fast, you go alone, and if you want to go far, you go together. So it takes a collective effort, and and it is part of our duties for those of us that are registered social workers to uphold the social work standards and values within our profession, and those are around social justice.
Thank you. Nina?
I was going to say exactly that same quote to Piwa. I think absolutely, and you also talked about professional standards, which is always beautiful when other people besides us who work for the regulator talk about the professional standards. So I'm going to applaud that and promise that I didn't pay her to do it. But I think the other thing for me that feels really important, and building on what Tapiwa and Antonia have said as well, is that it is this collective energy. I think, as I've said a couple of times today, and probably often say for those of you who talk to me regularly, is that I think there is something about how we bring together the different energy and the different skill sets across the sector. I'm so privileged to be able to see that across the board in my role on a national level, but just really want to be able to utilise what we've talked about today and really think about how we combine collectively across the country to really be able to pull together around anti-racism and looking at concerns more broadly around intersectionality as well, and really look at how we can utilise social work standards and values to really ensure that we are working in anti-oppressive and anti-discriminatory ways. And then a final plug on that as well. I talked earlier about the fair referral principles work that we've done with everybody across the country. Really like to highlight that. We'll pop that in the chat shortly as well. And we've also been, we've just shared our first quarterly update on the work that we've been doing around EDI, and we hope to be doing that every quarter now, just to be able to really highlight how we're able to support you across the country and really think about how we can collaborate as well.
Thank you, Amina. In fact, one of the questions just I seen 4 minutes ago is around what can be done to make like practice standardized with guidance or similar to the pledge anti-racist practice. Therefore, basically, it's not just about looking at the anti-racist practice, can we look beyond the intersectionality kind of aspect, particularly for other minorities groups, and how that can be supported across all the local authorities, not just in the Eastern region. Because it is true, the social worker, I think the colleague put in the question, the experience of people can vary from a county to another county, isn't it? And I think all Eastern colleagues mentioned that each local authority is in their own journey. If you want maybe to add a little bit more to that and your view, that would be great, because we need to acknowledge that there are differences. I don't know if Rachel or Antonia or Gemma, I'm not going to put you on the spot. But anyway, therefore, I think in terms of the practice, standardized, we do have the professional standards, which very much for social workers are in place. And I'm mindful, Amina, isn't it, that we're going to do further work around the education training standard for social work courses, with knowledge, skills, standards, and behaviors being launched, we hope, I think 2026, 2027, more details to follow up in the next couple of months. But definitely, I'm very much aware that those knowledge, skills, behaviors are very much focusing not just on the anti-racist practice, but the importance of social workers preparing for practice, therefore students, social work students, to be ready to practice in a way we have more or less covering this session, isn't it? Therefore, please do have a look at those education training standards. We're going to have a public consultation or public conversation with the sector, and more developments from Social Work England is going to be happening this year and going forward. Any other final reflection? If not, I'm going to say a big thank you to all of you. Very kind to allocate time from your very busy lives and professional life. Thank you also for the participants in this session. We really appreciated all of your time, but also the questions you have raised throughout the session. Thank you for your time, and I hope, if anything, you might utilize this session as a CPD opportunity as well. Do join us through other sessions throughout the Social Work Week. We have another session, I think, starting at 3 o'clock around training and support, training and development for people for social workers whom I work with autistic people, particularly older autistic people, but also have a number of sessions tomorrow and Friday. Once again, I'm going to say a big thank you for your attendance, and I'm looking forward to see you across the week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.